the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. This is going to be a very interesting parliament session, what with Rahul Gandhi finally taking over as leader of opposition. Modi 3.0 is also in place. He's got his cabinet. All the MPs have been sworn in, and now parliament has really started functioning. And it's begun with a bang. It's not like the last sessions where the Treasury benches had their way and the opposition was, submerged into silence by the mandate. Now they've got their voice back. They've got their mojo back. But on the other hand, Modi also doesn't seem to be giving an inch. He's got the speaker of his choice. He's carrying on with things as they were in 2.0. He's got the same cabinet back. So has anything changed, if at all? And are we finally seeing a Modi versus Rahul face-off at play, at least on the floor of the House? Joining me in this discussion is Dr. Sanjaya Baru. He is the former media advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh, former editor and author. We have Sandip Ghose. He's a political commentator and columnist. Javed Ansari, senior journalist and a columnist and commentator. And Dilip Cherian, political analyst and columnist. Dr. Baru, how do you see this progressing? We've seen the first week of Parliament, and I think finally, at least as reporters, we've got at least something to write about. So that's a good thing. But how do you see this Rahul versus Modi playing out?
Well, I mean, look, the fact is that Rahul Gandhi has finally come of age. It began with Bharat Jodo Yatra, as I've written in the past. I think that was the turning point. Till then, no one took him really seriously. But after his Bharat Jodo Yatra, he began to be taken seriously. And then he's had an impressive, record in these elections. I mean, the fact is that the Congress party has done well by the standards set in the last decade. So he is bound to be assertive. I mean, that assertion comes both from the Bharat Jodo Yatra experience as well as the performance in Uttar Pradesh particularly, but in other parts of the country. Now, the BJP, on the other hand, is pretending that it's business as usual. And I think part of the pretense is to convince its own cadre that it's business as usual, because the rest of the country is not convinced. I mean, we all know that they've lost 63 seats. They're down from 303 to 240, which is, in parliamentary terms, a defeat. But on the other hand, the pretense of the NDA is there. So therefore, you have a very interesting situation where though the opposition doesn't have the numbers, it has the confidence of having shown a certain degree of performance, of having reclaimed territory. It's like in Ukraine and Russia. I mean, every time the Ukrainians reclaim territory that they've lost to the Russians, the rest of the world claps. So in some ways, the Congress party is feeling confident because they've reclaimed territory. The BJP has lost territory, but the BJP is in power. So it's a very interesting situation. My own view, of course, is that the BJP has to come to terms with the reality. And I think that will happen only after the assembly elections. It's the results in Maharashtra, Haryana that are going to finally shape the behavior of both the opposition and the Treasury benches in the rest of the Lok Sabha.
So Sandeep, BJP has to, the optics they're very good at managing, but how it's really on the surface, is it? And what are we looking for next? The next marker to say how much in control is Modi? What is going to be the indication of that?
Dilip and I were discussing on another show the other day. My reading, first of all, is BJP right now is on a holding strategy. They were expecting that things, if they got, whether it's not the 400 par, even if they can cross their previous tally or did something better, they were anticipating there would be attacks on them still to say it's an illegitimate government because of tampering EVMs, EC, and all kinds of resources. So from there, they've had to come down to this 240, and I don't think they were quite prepared for how to respond to the situation. So they are kind of doing a holding strategy by saying it's business as usual, showing the continuity, not only in ministers, as you said, also in the speaker, in the NSA. everywhere else, to say almost it's like an extension of Modi 2.0. So BJP is still trying to get its act together, strategy together. The only evidence of that that we have seen is in this Maharashtra budget yesterday, which seemed to have gone 180 degrees towards freebies, etc. So whether it will get into competitive populism or otherwise, I think they're still figuring out. And that's why what we were discussing just before in terms of the BJP precedent would be also interesting to watch. But when you're talking about the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, while it's very significant, is taking on LOP because first time he's taking on a serious responsibility inside Parliament and from being on a shoot and scoot mode earlier. So he will have to be consistent. He has to display gravitas. He has to be taken seriously. But they also have an equal challenge in getting their act together because he's not just the leader of Congress. He has to prove himself as a leader of the opposition, and on which things may not gel so smoothly as we saw on day one itself in terms of the speaker's election. There was a difference of opinion between them and the others in terms of division on the floor. So I think it's a formative stage, but as you mentioned, it's interesting times ahead, and certainly we hope it doesn't degenerate into, again, something which is, not constructive for the country.
Javed, you've been seeing Rahul on the floor of the House. So the point that Sandip made, can he effectively become the leader of the opposition and not just the Congress? There's a good bonhomie between him and Akhilesh on display, for instance. Rahul will, and also it's not just a political role, it's also a governance role. It's his first step into government, really, which he refused to do in Manmohan Singh's time. So how do you read Rahul's actions as LOP?
Look, it's too early to judge. Even if he had a superb day on day one, the jury's still out. It's 5 years, and he'll learn on the job. I can only take, cite the example of his mother when she took over as LOP under Mr. Vajpayee. I mean, she was new to this. Was her first term in Parliament, and she learned. She had Mr. Madhav Sandhya, a very able deputy leader, and he used to shoulder a lot of the burden. And by, she got her act together. I know that the first time she made a speech, she was clutching the paper, her knuckles had turned white. I mean, that was the kind of thing, So some people grow into the job.
But she was the first time MP. Rahul Gandhi is now.
Rahul has been MP before. As far as this business of, he has a very good equation with Akhilesh, he's developed, and with the DMK. And with NCP, the only friction point remains things need to be smoothed out as far as TMC is concerned. So I guess in the break, they will set up an institutionalized mechanism for consultative mechanism, where on a daily basis, as far as the putting up a challenge for the speaker was concerned and TMC not being informed, well, they just had 10 minutes in that deadline. For the deadline to expire, they had to decide. And there are some things that you'll have to take on the decisions that have to be taken on the move. So these things will happen, when there are 12 or 16 parties together, these things will happen. But by and large, I think the opposition will stick to not so much out of love for each other, because they have no other option. And,
fair enough.
And this is a big challenge for Rahul Gandhi. Being leader of the opposition is not only about opposing or confrontation. You have to be aggressive, of course, but it also requires a lot of discipline. It also requires the fact that he will have to be present in Parliament, and whenever, it doesn't mean that he must jump up at every issue. He has to make a substantive, and his interventions have to be substantive. When he speaks, Parliament, he must get the attention of everybody else. So therefore, he'll have to do he needs to build a team around him that will help him. And
the team part, I agree, because I have not seen Rahul as a team player. He always picks people outside the party. So Dilip, in terms of issues, what Javed has said is a good point. He can't now keep raising issues that nobody else is interested in, this whole, the Rafale thing or the Chokidar Chora. He has to now take everybody along. Do you see Rahul has finally, grown into this role? You think he'll be able to handle it?
I think multiple terms in Parliament have ensured that Rahul does not have the same startup anxiety as he would if he were to take on LOP because he's taking on LOP for the first time. I think that the most important thing is to have a team in parliament, which Javed already referred to. And I think that is crucial. And watching that come into play will be very important. He has taken a lot of initiatives, which even with the TMC meeting Abhishek Banerjee, making sure that Akhilesh is part of those meetings, etc., to show that there is a core of the opposition that is forming and that will take everybody along, including the DMK. I'm not so sure that it's yet time to put in a formal mechanism, except that, it would make for great reporting and lots of analysis. Other than that, I think they need to take their time putting that together, and maybe the break is the time to do that. The problem is that the way the speaker and the speaker in the Lok Sabha and the vice chairman in the Rajya Sabha are behaving seem to be, in a sense, clearly confrontational. And that is definitely going to be the bugbear in the entire parliamentary process, as it should be. Because the fact is that you've had a period of them behaving as if they were actually ruling the House, which is not what their task is. It is meant to carry the debate on. And I think that until that is sorted out, a feisty and aggressive posturing in Parliament will be something that the people will expect. Because I think Rahul's opening line that the opposition represents a very large number of citizens is going to be the leitmotif, and it should be. Rahul, especially after his Bharat Jodo Yatras, is more conscious of the fact that it is the voice of the street that needs to be heard. And it is not just about, the fine-tuning of parliamentary process or, objecting to a certain question or anything of that kind. I think that bludgeoning is what you will watch happening. And I think that he's very clear that that's the message he wants to give as leader of the opposition.
Dr. Baru, how do you see, we've heard, Rahul needs to, like someone says, grow up, or you said he's finally grown up. But beyond that, the issues that he can raise, for instance, like the NEET issue, that was a good issue he picked up. He's also, growing up in the terms of issues he's picking up. Are you okay with that kind of a thing?
There are lots and lots of issues. There is a huge problem of governance. And what has happened in the education sector is just one of the many issues of governance. I think the fact is that a lot is going wrong in this country, a lot has gone wrong in the country. The opposition today feels emboldened to raise all those issues, and they are expected to raise all those issues. You cannot expect the opposition not to behave like an opposition. I think, as I agree with Dilip and Javed, that the behavior of the speaker and the vice chairman of the Rajya Sabha is completely unacceptable. I actually saw a clip where the speaker is telling Diptendra Hooda, "Baith jao." I have never heard a speaker of the Lok Sabha tell a member of parliament gesticulating like this, saying, "Baito, baito." That is not behavior in parliament. This is really, shocking. So I think there is an element of aggression, deliberate aggression being shown by the ruling party in order, as I said earlier, to convince their own people that they have returned victorious. When it is well recognized that the BJP has taken a huge knock and a setback. And education is a serious issue. The entire process, the way in which this former Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, who is now chairman of the University Grants Commission, has manipulated the whole system is shocking. Frankly, heads have to roll. We have not seen any heads roll in the education sector. But there are other issues. The Delhi drainage system is one issue. There are a number of issues in this country which need to be taken up. I think, to me, what is important about this Lok Sabha is that the pretense of the last 10 years, that India is moving forward, we are the 5th largest economy, we'll become the 3rd largest economy, we are Viksit Bharat, the whole world is looking at us, we are Vishwabandhu, Vishwaguru, that G20, we are a global leader. All that has ended. All that pretense has to end, because you then have to come to terms with the fact that in the national capital, one heavy shower completely brings the city to a halt. The national capital. This is not some village in the country, right? You have to come to terms with the fact that you cannot conduct normal education examinations to entrance examinations. You have to come to terms with the fact that there are a lot of problems of backwardness. We are still a developing economy. I've been writing this now for some time now. We are a developing economy. And the rest of the world is now tired of our pretense of being Vishwaguru, Vishwabandhu. The United States is telling you, fall in line, unless you prosecute this fellow, unless you confess to your crime, we are not going to treat you in a normal way. These are messages being sent. The Chinese are sitting on your territory and saying, take it or leave it. So I think there is a serious shift in the direction of politics, in which the opposition today is emboldened to raise all these issues. Earlier, the sheer overwhelming majority of the BJP and the kind of power that they enjoyed did not give opposition the space and the voice. But I think now they have it, they are going to use it, and they must use it. I mean, people expect them to use it. It will be confrontational. As I said earlier again, I think the elections in the Maharashtra and Haryana will be important turning point. If the BJP comes back to power in those 2 states, then we'll go back to the past. Then we are going to see the same old aggressive, ED, CBI kind of based government. But on the other hand, if the Congress is able to hold its ground and is able to come to power in both those states, or 1 or 2 of those states, then we'll see this contestation going on. Where all of this will go in terms of governance, in terms of parliament, etc., one waits and watches.
Okay, but at least there is something to watch instead of just walkouts. Now I'm going to take a quick break and come back, and I'm going to pick up a point from what Dr. Baru has just said, but after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are taking a look at the change mandate and has it really affected business as usual. Sandip, Dr. Baru mentioned that there are signs that the opposition is also emboldened, but even the establishment is emboldened. We've seen, for instance, the former Jharkhand chief minister has been let out, and if the courts are also, Kejriwal is probably, getting bail, or is at least some movement has started in that. So these are signs. The establishment is very quick to pick up the signs of a weaker government, even though Modi might try to say all is well. So do you see that also as a signal that, they will have to be wary of?
See, Priya, I would be very, very wary of linking selectively what you call by establishment the institutions decision vis-a-vis the change in government. If that is really happening, then I think we have a serious problem in the country. And that is what people have alluded to earlier. So if the establishment takes cues from who is in power and then decides what is there going to be, then where does it leave the ordinary citizen? And forget the politicians. So that would be a very, very scary situation. And I would like to believe it is not so. The case, and if people are being released, it is released. If I would grant that, okay, it could be the incompetence of the prosecution, incompetence of the investigative agencies, and the courts are taking the rightful view. That I'm willing to do. But to say either way, the courts, when they didn't grant bail, they did it because somebody was in power, or vice versa. That would be a very, very dangerous, I think, point to make. Now, what you were talking about in the parliament, what Dr. Baru was saying, certainly the opposition is emboldened. They ought to be emboldened. And I think so far, they're sticking to the strategy. Rahul Gandhi is trying to make the right noise, not only in parliament, but outside parliament. If you see his bites about NEET, what he's saying, that why
Yes.
to give the students a view and why they wanted a dedicated discussion. I think he's trying to do that. And and BJP, even if we were to say, yeah, they're pretending to be in power, nothing's changed. That's part of their tactics or strategy. We'll only know after a while whether that works or not. Personally, I have my reservations as to whether that kind of bravado, so to speak, works. But it's difficult for them to recalibrate their style overnight. And we'll have to wait for a new equilibrium to strike. But at the same time, only thing I'd like to comment apropos what Dr. Baru said, I don't see it as black and white, that there's nothing has happened in India. We are still struggling. We are still a developing state. And
No, I think he's saying that we are not where they claimed we were.
no, you may be. So you're not also at the other extreme. And neither is the West. You see the presidential debate 2 days ago. Who's America to lecture us as to who should be our prime minister? If that is the form of leadership they have, which was displayed before the entire world, as the kind of people who are either calling the shots or wants to call the shots, then it's a bit rich for them to lecture as to what is democracy here and who should be prime minister, not a prime minister, how we should manage our affairs. So I think there, if we are calling the West out, if you see the MEA's statement to what was talked about, in terms of religious freedom and other things, I, as a person, would support it. I don't think there is anything wrong, and it's time we did speak up rather than being spoken down to.
Okay. Javed, in terms of, for instance, every year the BJP makes a big deal about emergency, and Congress either walks out quietly or, in defiance goes to visit Sanjay Gandhi Samadhi. First time, I think they've taken the issue with the speaker, not just Rahul, the entire opposition with him. So these are the changing optics that we are seeing.
Priya, did the other opposition run to the well? Did Samajwadi Party run to the well on the emergency?
But they accompanied Rahul when he went to meet the speaker, or when he went.
That's different. But they didn't take the speaker on inside the parliament. And that's a distinction to make. If Samajwadi Party does it, which is an offshoot of the emergency period, then I think there is a tectonic shift in the politics.
Okay. Javed?
You need to listen to what Akhilesh Yadav said once they came out of parliament. He says they are just trying to make the souffle rise. They are not the only ones who went to jail. My father went to jail. That's an issue dead and gone. The majority of Indians were not even born when the emergency was clamped in this country. And if you're really against all that happened in the emergency, then don't repeat it. Look at the number of journalists who've lost jobs. Look at, a comedian is jailed for a joke that he didn't crack. And people are protesting against something that happened 50 years ago, 49 years ago. So that's a bit rich. And as far as this business of, the America or nobody should be able to talk down to us, who are they to decide whether who should be Prime Minister of India? Who are we to decide ki abki baar Trump sarkar? I mean, we have this birthright to decide. We are the easiest thing in the world is to be a legend in your own mind, to lecture everybody. Like I always say, every Indian is either a doctor or a cricket captain or a political advisor. So apart from advising our local domestic politics, now we started advising the world also. We are patting ourselves on the back. India ke wajah se ho gaya. Yes, it's absolutely wrong to say that everything under this government that has happened is wrong. But it's equally, if not more, wrong to say that the sun has now started rising in India only after 2014. As if everything else that happened before them was not. Look at the number of foundation stones that were laid. There's this hollow claim of one aims every month. Look at the number of foundation stones that have laid, and nothing else happened in those sites. This is well documented both on television and in print, whatever little is left of the media. So to say, to close one eyes and just look at this, you just fact check the claims that this government has been making. Like all governments, they like to talk up their achievements. But as general, let's fact check, and we know what is happening. So much of these vanity projects, so much of hard-earned money was spent on these vanity projects. This Mandapam, where the G20 meeting was held, on the last day it rained and everything came. The Prime Minister
Crashing
made a
down.
big show of inaugurating that underpass, Pragati Mela underpass. He was picking up debris from the road. And then what happened? First rains, people are getting drowned. People are dying in Delhi. So,
Yeah.
there needs to be a reality check. Everything that they say is not true. Look at what we want to conduct one nation, one election. We can't conduct one exam properly, and one nation, one election. And
Good point.
It takes a month of Sundays to conduct general elections. 7 phases, and you want to you want to talk of conducting elections throughout the country in one go.
Okay. But Dilip, falling victim to your own hype, that's something, as a marketing man, as a strategist, you would say that is really the biggest danger of the Modi government is now, and now people are calling him out, that's the other problem that he's having.
Priya, as a person who hawks hype, I think that when you carry that too far forward is when danger begins to be obvious to you. Is it obvious yet here to this government? The answer is it is not. Yesterday, when JP Morgan included India debt in their global fund, the fact is that global media was saying that India wants access to these capital markets, saying it wants it for infrastructure. I'm just talking of the imagery. But immediately they showed the crack in the road in Bombay. It may or may not be real, it may not be substantial, but when global financial media begins to focus on the rain and its impact on the airport, you are really becoming you're becoming a subject of greater scrutiny than before, which means that your own hype is being called out for what it is. Is that all right? I think, as Sandip said, certainly we are not where we started 10 years ago. But have we gone to the heights that people are being convinced or being tried to be convinced that we've gone to? The answer is also no. And I think that ability to retreat from that needs grace and needs acknowledgement. And I think that to the extent that it was possible, the way the problem yesterday at the airport was handled may have got them some breathing space. But I think that Parliament is going to, and opposition is going to, and most importantly, the hype channels are going to require recalibration. And I think that recalibration is not going to be very comfortable. So we need to be prepared for a phase of that. And while it may provide a lot of media, bites and glory, the fact is that the rest of the country will also have to bite that bullet that, hey, this is not what it is.
Okay, well, the churn has begun and it's going to be interesting if this parliament session has been a curtain raiser for what lies ahead. I think the budget session is at least we're going to see democracy back at play on parliament at least. And that, of course, is never a bad thing. But thank you so much for this conversation and we'll see you again same time next week.